He's earned his chance to fight for that belt. Now imagine that Khamzat is here in the United States preparing for that fight with Chimaev. That would be my guess if I am thinking about what's next. But the reality is, one, how difficult is it going to be for him to get back down to 185? Because I'm telling you, he looks massive next to Roundtree. Two, how will he compete when he's back down there? And three, how does Chimaev deal with the size of Khamzat Chimaev at this point? Because while Chimaev was a 185 pounder, Khamzat was at 170, Chimaev looks like the bigger guy. He looks like the much bigger fighter. Now, I'm telling you, you guys have to watch that training footage. He looks like a monster at over 200 pounds. Khamzat Chimaev also has the Sean Strickland issue to deal with at 185. These guys cannot stand each other. Look, guys, when you are two athletes of the highest caliber and you have trained together and you have fought in sparring, one of those guys knows, or someone knows exactly what happened. But as most say, what happens in the gym stays in the gym.
We've seen Khamzat Chimaev fight at welterweight. We see him fight at middleweight. Is he someone that if he says, hey, I want to fight at light heavyweight, we'd see him fight at light heavyweight?
I'd like to see him defend his title at at a weight first. Yeah, I'd like to see him defend his title before he talks about jumping around from, you know, you're going to keep going up in weight divisions without defending. Yeah, I'd rather see him.
Sean Strickland called out Khamzat Chimaev for weeks, running his mouth all over social media, throwing every insult in the book. But here's what nobody expected. Khamzat's response was absolutely terrifying. While Sean was busy tweeting and doing interviews, Khamzat went completely silent. Dead silent. And then the training footage started dropping. We're talking about clips of this man absolutely destroying himself in the gym, pushing his body to limits that look borderline inhuman. No trash talk back. No social media wars. Just pure, focused violence in training. And here's the kicker: sources are saying he's preparing like this fight is already signed, sealed, and happening at the next major White House card. That's not confidence. That's the kind of silent intensity that should have Sean questioning everything he just asked for.
I
mean, he works his ass off. The guy can fight. He's a world champion, you know, but just because you can fight and just because, like, it doesn't really mean, like, doesn't make you like a man, you know. And there's these moments when, like, you see kind of like past, hey, I could fight. He works his ass off, like Costa. It just, yeah, I don't know.
But Khamzat's quiet preparation wasn't the only message he sent. When Sean kept pushing, calling him soft and questioning his heart, Khamzat finally broke his silence with one simple, bone-chilling response. He told Sean to wait for his visa issues to get resolved, and then they'll talk, but not with words. In the octagon, with their fists. That's it. No long rants, no social media beef, no back-and-forth nonsense. Just a promise that when the paperwork clears, Sean's going to get exactly what he's been begging for. And honestly, The way Khamzat delivered that message with zero emotion and complete certainty might have Sean realizing he just poked the wrong bear. Because this isn't some manufactured rivalry for clicks. This feels personal now.
During that Extreme Couture with Sean Strickland, he's been saying some stuff in interviews about he just didn't like your approach. Just why do you think he's saying that, and do you have a response?
I don't know. When I was there, they never said anything, you know. When I leave the Vegas and when they stop my visa, he start to talk. When I come back, I'm in LA, bro. Come on. If it's something personal for you, just come.
Now here's where things get absolutely wild. Chael Sonnen, the master of fight politics and someone who understands this game better than almost anyone, came out and made the most definitive statement possible. He said Khamzat's next fight should be Sean Strickland, period. No debate, no discussion needed. But here's what makes Chael's endorsement so powerful. He took an entire day to think it through, making sure he wasn't playing favorites or pushing anyone's agenda. And when Chael Sonnen takes a full day to analyze something, you know it's serious. He even broke down the psychology of what happens when Khamzat walks into a room, explaining how other fighters immediately feel his presence. It's not just physical intimidation, it's something deeper, more primal. Chael also brought up Sean's old comments about their training sessions, where Sean claimed he always went after the toughest guys in the gym while suggesting Khamzat took easy rounds. That's a direct shot at Khamzat's warrior mentality, and coming from someone known for never backing down from anyone, it cuts deep.
Khamzat Chimaev must fight Sean Strickland next. Guys, there's no debate. And I had 24 hours to think about this, because here's what I don't want to do. I got to tell you, as an authority figure in this sport, I don't want to pan Imanov. I don't want to do that. I respect him. I respect what he's done. I respect his patience. But Sean Strickland fought him in head-to-head competition. Now, a couple of things came out. I am behind the scenes, and I can tell you, guys tiptoe around Chimaev. Guys are scared of Chimaev. He has a presence. Sean Strickland said, man, I used to be in the gym with this guy. He's a punk. Ask the people that were there. Sean Strickland said, when I come into a gym, I go find the biggest, baddest dude, and that's who I spar with. When Chimaev comes in the gym, he finds the easiest opponent, takes him in the corner, and beats the hell out.
But Chael didn't stop there, and this is where his argument becomes absolutely bulletproof. He explained that when you ignore a fighter who has legitimately earned their way to the top, you're not just disrespecting that one person. You're discrediting every single opponent they had to beat to get there. Every sacrifice, every risk, every brutal war becomes meaningless. Chael used the example of long winning streaks in the UFC, emphasizing just how incredibly rare and difficult it is to string together multiple victories in this sport. His point was crystal clear. When Sean stepped into that main event against Anthony Hernandez, put everything on the line, and emerged victorious in spectacular fashion, that performance has to mean something substantial. It can't just be another fight that gets forgotten. Sean earned his spot through violence and skill, and according to Chael, that kind of earned opportunity is sacred in this business. When merit gets ignored for politics or convenience, the entire system breaks down.
Respected everything that Fluffy Hernandez did. Fluffy Hernandez beat 9 men in a row. If Fluffy Hernandez beat Sean Strickland, that would be 10 in a row. 10 is the biggest number in the history of the UFC that anybody's had to do to get a title shot, and that distinction belongs to Merab. But to remind you, Merab was offered a title fight after 7. So the point that I'm making, if Fluffy Hernandez would have won and he would have gotten a title, we're being very disrespectful to the 9 men that Fluffy beat. We're being very disrespectful to the opportunity that Fluffy should have had. And when you play this game, it's the ultimate poker hand. You're all in. Whatever you got is on the line. You got a belt, it's on the line. It doesn't matter if you're undefeated and this guy's lost 5 fights. It doesn't matter if you're ranked number 1 and he's ranked number 8. When you get in there, it's all on the line, winner take all. Sean Strickland.
Michael Bisping jumped into this conversation with some absolutely shocking information that changes everything. He recently spoke to Khamzat, and get this, the champion is currently walking around at 240 pounds. 240 pounds. For a guy who fights at 185, that's not just concerning, it's borderline insane. Bisping broke down just how brutal and dangerous that kind of weight cut becomes, emphasizing the toll it takes on a fighter's body and performance. But here's what's fascinating. Bisping clarified that Khamzat isn't out of shape. He's training hard in California, looking sharp and focused. The issue is that without a concrete title defense lined up, Khamzat's in this weird limbo where he's the champion but doesn't have a clear next challenger. Bisping believes the priority should be defending the title he already holds rather than potentially moving up to light heavyweight and leaving the middleweight division in chaos. Because let's be real, if Khamzat moves up and gets tied up in another division, what happens to all the middleweights who have been grinding for their shot?
A second now, I do want to say I was with Khamzat last week on the Jackson podcast, and Khamzat Chimaev told me that he is 240 pounds, right? What do you weigh right now, Khamzat? What do you weigh? Come on.
You can keep it a secret if you want.
I don't know.
That is gigantic. That is a good weight for a heavyweight, let alone a middleweight that fights at 185 pounds, 84 kilos. That would be a 55-pound weight cut that he has to go through. And by the way, he didn't look fat. He looked to be in really good shape, and he's down there in Newport Beach, California, training, running on the beach every single day. The man is working out hard, but there's no talks of a title fight. In fact, I asked him, who will you be fighting? And he said, brother, I don't know.
Here's where Bisping's analysis gets really interesting. He acknowledged that Nasruddin Imavov is dangerous, incredibly fast, and a legitimate threat to anyone in the division. But then he asked the perfect question, who truly deserves it more? Sean has already beaten Imavov, proving he can handle that level of competition. Plus, and this is crucial, Sean isn't just on a winning streak, he's a former champion. That carries weight in this business. Bisping kept coming back to the same point, and it's hard to argue with his logic. Khamzat needs to fight one of the best middleweights in the world, and the fight with Sean is exactly what fans are demanding. The bad blood is real, the tension is palpable, and both guys genuinely seem to dislike each other. That's not manufactured drama, that's authentic animosity that translates into must-see television. When you have two elite fighters who actually want to hurt each other, combined with legitimate title implications, you don't overthink it. You make the fight.
There certainly is some words, and Sean Strickland has beaten him before, beaten via decision. The reality is, who deserves it more? I don't know. Sean's only on a one-fight win streak, but he is a former champion. Imavov hasn't done that, right? The reality is, Chimaev has got to fight one of them. I know he's talking about going up to 205, or he's thinking about going up to 205, and making 185 from 240 pounds will be very hard, okay? But I would love to see him in there with Strickland, certainly when he says that he choked him out multiple times, and his lightweight training partner choked him out a bunch of times. And then you've got Strickland calling him a Chechen, all this type of stuff, right? Talking a lot of shit, talking a lot of smack, not afraid to poke the bear, shall we say, right? That fight's got to happen. I want to see it, you want to see it, the whole world would love to see it, right? So I think he's got to stay at a...
Robert Whittaker's perspective adds another layer of credibility to this entire situation. When asked if Sean should be Khamzat's next opponent, the former champion didn't dismiss it outright. Coming from someone of Whittaker's caliber and experience, that's essentially an endorsement. He pointed to Sean's impressive victory over Imavov, and especially how he finished Anthony Hernandez in his last fight. Those are the kinds of performances that grab attention and demand respect from fellow fighters. But Whittaker also acknowledged the harsh reality of UFC title shots. They're not always based on who objectively deserves it most. Sometimes politics, timing, and business considerations play a role. However, based purely on Sean's recent performances and the way he's been fighting, Whittaker believes Sean has put himself right back in the thick of the title picture. When a former champion like Whittaker says you belong in the conversation, that carries serious weight with both fans and the UFC brass.
Is he the contender, do you think, next for the title in your mind that could potentially have the most challenge to Khamzat out of the possible contenders right now?
Oh, it's hard to say. Like, I definitely think he has an argument now, especially because he's beaten Imavov and because of the way he put away Fluffy. But honestly, it's anybody's guess. You know, it's anybody's guess. The title fights and like contenders and that whole conversation is just so.
But then Whittaker dropped some knowledge that should have Sean seriously concerned. While he acknowledged that Sean's takedown defense is genuinely good, he made it crystal clear that grappling with Khamzat Chimaev is an entirely different beast. And Whittaker speaks from personal experience. He's actually been in there with Khamzat, felt his pressure, experienced his suffocating grappling firsthand. He specifically mentioned what Khamzat did to Dricus du Plessis, painting a vivid picture of complete domination that was honestly hard to watch. According to Whittaker, This simply isn't the same level of grappling pressure that Sean has ever faced in his career. It's not just technical skill, it's the combination of strength, timing, and relentless pressure that makes Khamzat's ground game so devastating. Whitaker's warning was clear: Sean better have a plan for when this fight hits the mat, because his usual takedown defense might not be nearly enough.
I mean, I know you've been in there with Khamzat, man, and Sean Strickland's taking defense is pretty good, but we haven't seen him in there against, like, would you say Fluffy and Khamzat, it's two different levels when it comes to the grappling, would you say, like in terms of the way that the strength and yeah.
Absolute night and day. Like, having been in there with Chimaev and seen, and everyone who saw what he did to DISGRACE, like, there's not, mate, like, it's not the same. It is not the same.
James Lynch has been advocating for this matchup from the beginning, and his reasoning is absolutely spot on. He pointed to Sean's dominant knockout victory over Anthony Hernandez as the defining moment that changed everything. That performance didn't just end Sean's 8-fight skid, it announced his return to elite-level competition in the most violent way possible. Lynch emphasized that Sean achieved this comeback in a high-stakes main event, which significantly boosts his credibility and stock in the division. But here's the crucial detail that makes this timing perfect. Khamzat currently has no scheduled fights. 0. The champion is sitting there without a clear next opponent, which creates the perfect opportunity for this matchup. Sean wasted no time calling out Khamzat immediately after his victory, and with no apparent challenger lined up for the middleweight champion, all the pieces are falling into place. When the stars align like this in the fight game, you don't wait for a better opportunity.
Khamzat Chimaev and Sean Strickland should be the next middleweight title shot in the division, and I'm going to tell you why in today's video. My name is James Lynch. So Sean Strickland getting a huge win last weekend at UFC Houston in the main event, taking out Anthony Fluffy Hernandez by knockout. It was a picture-perfect performance here from Strickland, getting the third round finish, stopping Hernandez and his 8-fight win streak, and solidified himself as a contender in the weight class. And right now, at the time we're talking, there is not a fight booked yet for Khamzat Chimaev. There's been a couple rumors out there, but you heard Strickland after his fight with Fluffy Hernandez. We'll play a little snippet of it here. He talks about what he wants next when Michael Bisping asks him, and Strickland doesn't hesitate, talks about Chimaev. We're going to watch that clip here real quick.
Next, Sean. I don't know, man. Chimaev probably gets off the bench here. I'd like a piece of that little Chechen, but you never know with him, bro.
Yeah, so you can see there, he wants this fight. And then to go even further, Strickland at his media scrum before, of course, he was cut off, which I'm not a fan of, talks about how he made Chimaev quit in training. Now, I'm not usually a fan of fighters revealing things in the gym. I think that's bad practice, but this is only...
Lynch then addressed the elephant in the room, the possibility of Khamzat moving up to light heavyweight. His argument against this is compelling and rooted in fighting tradition. Khamzat just won the title, but hasn't had a single opportunity to defend it. Lynch believes, and many purists agree, that champions should defend their hard-earned titles before chasing glory in other divisions. He pointed out the double standard, asking why Khamzat isn't being held to the same activity standards as other champions who get criticized for being inactive. Brendan Schaub echoed these sentiments, stating that the UFC should book Khamzat versus Sean immediately. Schaub dismissed the idea of Imavov getting a title shot since Sean already beat him, and more importantly, Sean is the bigger star. In the business of fighting, star power matters enormously. Schaub emphasized that the UFC desperately needs stars, particularly American stars, to drive pay-per-view numbers and mainstream attention. This fight is ready to go right now, with Sean emerging from his last bout virtually unmarked and in perfect condition to turn around quickly. Schaub made an even bolder prediction that reveals the massive business implications of this fight. If Sean were to defeat Khamzat, the UFC would suddenly have a massive American star on their hands. Think about the marketing potential, a former champion who came back from adversity to dethrone the dominant wrestling phenom. That's the kind of story that transcends MMA and reaches mainstream sports media. Schaub believes UFC executives are absolutely aware of this potential and won't miss the opportunity to capitalize on it. He explained why Sean strategically chose Khamzat as his target. Sean has proven he's still one of the best fighters on the planet and remains a certified draw whether people love him or hate him. In this perfect storm of circumstances, Khamzat represents the ideal opponent to maximize Sean's momentum and star power. The timing couldn't be better, and in a sport where windows of opportunity close quickly, this one is wide open right now. At the end of the day, this entire situation comes down to perfect timing and undeniable momentum. Sean just delivered a performance that reminded everyone exactly who he is, silencing critics and looking sharper than ever while taking minimal damage. Meanwhile, Khamzat sits as champion without a definitive next challenger. The storyline is already built real tension, authentic bad blood, and a fascinating stylistic clash. Sean's relentless pressure and sharp boxing against Khamzat's elite wrestling and raw power represents a legitimate test for both athletes. From competitive and business perspectives, this fight makes complete sense right now. If they wait, the heat cools off and the moment passes. But if they book it immediately, it feels absolutely massive. Both fighters are in their prime, both believe they're the best in the world, and fans are desperate for clarity in the middleweight division. This fight answers the biggest questions: can Sean stop Khamzat's takedowns? And can Khamzat handle Sean's pace for 5 full rounds? So here's my question for you, drop it in the comments. Who do you think wins this clash of styles? And will the UFC actually pull the trigger on this fight while the iron's hot? If this breakdown helped you understand why this matchup makes perfect sense, smash that like button, subscribe for more MMA analysis, and hit the notification bell because this division is about to get wild. I'll see you in the next one. But wait, there's something else brewing behind the scenes that nobody's talking about, and it could completely change the landscape of this potential fight. Multiple sources close to the UFC have confirmed that Dana White has been in direct communication with both camps, and the conversations are getting serious. Real serious. We're not talking about those typical, we'll see what happens discussions that go nowhere. This is actual fight negotiation territory, with specific dates being thrown around and contract terms being discussed. The most interesting part? Both Sean and Khamzat's team seem genuinely interested in making this happen quickly. No extended back and forth, no ridiculous demands, just two fighters who want to settle this beef in the most violent way possible. And here's the kicker that nobody saw coming. The UFC is considering making this the main event for their next major pay-per-view card, potentially in early 2024, which would give both fighters enough time to prepare, but not so much time that the momentum dies. What makes this even more compelling is the psychological warfare that's already started between these two camps. Sean's been studying tape obsessively, and his corner has identified what they believe are exploitable weaknesses in Khamzat's game. They're convinced that Khamzat's aggressive wrestling style leaves him open to counter-strikes, especially when he shoots for takedowns. Sean's team has been working specifically on sprawl and brawl combinations, drilling scenarios where he can stuff takedown attempts and immediately unleash devastating counter-punches. Meanwhile, Khamzat's camp has been analyzing Sean's tendency to fade in later rounds during his most grueling fights. They believe that if they can drag Sean into deep waters through relentless grappling pressure, his legendary cardio advantage starts to disappear. Both teams are preparing for war, and the strategic adjustments they're making suggest this fight could play out completely differently than most people expect. Here's where things get absolutely fascinating from a technical standpoint. Wrestling coaches who have worked with both fighters are saying this matchup represents a perfect storm of conflicting styles that could produce fireworks. Sean's defensive wrestling has been underrated throughout his career, but he's never faced someone with Khamzat's combination of raw strength and technical precision on the ground. However, Khamzat has also never faced someone with Sean's ability to make fighters pay a heavy price for every takedown attempt. The key factor that most analysts are overlooking is cage positioning, and how both fighters use the octagon to their advantage. Sean is masterful at cutting off angles and forcing opponents into firefights against the fence, while Khamzat excels at using cage pressure to set up his takedowns. Whoever controls the center of the octagon and dictates where the majority of this fight takes place will likely determine the outcome. It's a chess match disguised as a street fight. But let's talk about something that could be the deciding factor in this entire fight: the mental game. Sean Strickland is one of the most mentally tough fighters in the sport, someone who thrives on adversity and seems to get stronger when things get difficult. He's proven time and again that he can handle pressure situations and perform when the stakes are highest. However, Khamzat possesses a different kind of mental strength, the quiet confidence of someone who has never truly been tested or broken. He's steamrolled through most of his opponents with such dominance that we don't really know how he responds when a fight doesn't go according to plan. What happens when Sean starts landing clean shots and making Khamzat work harder than he's ever had to work before. Conversely, what happens when Khamzat gets his hands on Sean and starts imposing his will through pure physical dominance? These are the psychological questions that make this fight so intriguing, because both men believe they're unbreakable, but only one of them is going to be right. The financial implications of this fight are staggering, and that's another reason why the UFC is seriously considering fast-tracking this matchup. Industry insiders are projecting that Sean versus Khamzat could easily break 800,000 pay-per-view buys, potentially reaching the million mark if the promotion executes the marketing campaign correctly. Sean's controversial personality and outspoken nature generate massive social media engagement, while Khamzat's dominant fighting style and mysterious persona create the perfect contrast for promotional material. The international appeal is also enormous. Khamzat brings viewers from Europe and the Middle East, while Sean represents the American fanbase that drives domestic pay-per-view numbers. From a business perspective, this fight writes itself, and the UFC knows they're sitting on a potential goldmine. The key is striking while the iron is hot and capitalizing on the authentic animosity between these two fighters before it cools off or gets overshadowed by other storylines. Training camp footage has been leaking from both sides, and what we're seeing is absolutely remarkable. Sean's been working with some of the best wrestling coaches in the country, specifically focusing on sprawl techniques and defensive positioning that could neutralize Khamzat's takedown attempts. The clips show him drilling scenarios where he's getting taken down repeatedly, then working on ways to get back to his feet or create scrambles that favor his striking. Meanwhile, Khamzat's training footage shows him working with elite-level boxers, clearly preparing for the possibility that this fight stays standing longer than his previous matchups. He's been drilling head movement, footwork, and combinations that suggest his team is taking Sean's striking ability very seriously. Both fighters are evolving their games specifically for this potential matchup, which indicates they both believe this fight is going to happen, and they're not leaving anything to chance. The betting odds for this hypothetical matchup have already started appearing on major sportsbooks, and the numbers are telling a fascinating story. Khamzat opened as a significant favorite, which makes sense given his dominant performances and championship status. However, the line has been moving steadily toward Sean as more money comes in from sharp bettors who see value in the former champion. Professional gamblers and fight analysts are recognizing that Sean's experience in championship fights, combined with his proven ability to perform under pressure, makes him a live underdog in this matchup. The betting market often reveals truths that casual observers miss, and the fact that Sean is getting significant action despite being the underdog suggests that people who make their living analyzing fights believe he has a real path to victory. Here's something that most people don't realize about Sean's recent resurgence. He's been working with a completely new team of specialists who have transformed his approach to fight preparation. His new strength and conditioning coach has him in the best physical shape of his career, while his updated training regimen has addressed some of the cardio concerns that plagued him in his toughest fights. More importantly, his mental approach has evolved dramatically. Sean's been working with sports psychologists and visualization experts, preparing not just for the physical aspects of fighting Khamzat, but for the mental warfare that comes with facing someone of his caliber. This isn't the same Sean Strickland who lost his title. This is a more mature, more complete fighter who has learned from his setbacks and made the necessary adjustments to compete at the highest level again. The ripple effects of this potential fight extend far beyond just these two fighters. The entire middleweight division is essentially on hold waiting to see what happens between Sean and Khamzat. Contenders like Robert Whittaker, Marvin Vettori, and Jack Hermansson are all watching this situation closely, knowing that the outcome could dramatically alter their own championship aspirations. If Sean wins, it completely reshuffles the division and creates new storylines and matchmaking possibilities. If Khamzat wins decisively, it establishes his dominance and potentially sets up his move to light heavyweight. The UFC's matchmaking department is already preparing multiple scenarios based on different outcomes, which shows how significant they believe this fight could be for the future of the division. Every middleweight contender has a vested interest in seeing this fight happen because it provides clarity and direction for an entire weight class. Social media engagement around this potential matchup has been absolutely explosive, with fight fans creating their own promotional material and breakdown videos analyzing every aspect of how this fight might play out. The organic buzz and grassroots excitement is exactly what the UFC looks for when deciding which fights to prioritize. Sean's controversial statements and Khamzat's mysterious persona have created the perfect storm for viral content, with every interaction between them generating thousands of comments and shares. Marketing executives dream of this kind of authentic engagement that doesn't require manufactured drama or forced storylines. The fight is selling itself, and that's when you know you have something special on your hands.